Did you know that even the common household light switch is a simple machine? This light switch in the video is actually a lever. When you push on one side, it rotates around a central fulcrum and moves the other side in the opposite direction you pushed. You can build your own levers out of blocks. Simply place one block on top of another. The block on bottom represents the fulcrum. When you build your own levers, you can change them however you want, and you can see how it alters the amount of input and output force you put into the machine. The input force is how much force you actually put into the machine. It's what work you're doing on it. The output force is whatever amount of force the machine puts out on its object. Levers are cool because they can change the input force. The input force on a lever does not always equal the output force. Another type of simple machine you might know even is in your house is called a wedge. These kitchen knives are all wedges. A wedge is really a type of an inclined plane, which we'll talk about more later. A wedge works by splitting apart materials, slicing them, and pushing them apart. And if you're not careful, it can do the same to your finger. This knife here is very sharp. The sharper and thinner the blade, the more effective and efficient the wedge is. These stairs are actually a simple machine. Stairs are a form of the machine called the inclined plane. An inclined plane makes it easier to do work. An example is, say you are carrying a heavy basket. It's very hard to try and jump from one floor to the next, carrying the basket. An easier way to get the basket from floor 1 to floor 2 is to walk up stairs. You go up higher than you ever could jump, and it makes the work easier. Another simple machine is the screw. Screws help keep your peanut butter fresh by holding the lid on tight. With screws, the key isn't to pull up or push down on them. No, when you use horizontal turning forces on a screw, it translates it into up and down movements. Screws are very interesting because the advantage they give you when you're doing something depends on the distance between their threads. A screw is really just an inclined plane wrapped around a stick. The next type of machine is a pulley. As you can see here, when you pull on one towel, it takes your pulling force and curves it around the axis, which pulls on more towels. This does not make it any easier really to do the work. It just changes the direction of that you need to do the work in, if that makes sense. A pulley can be very useful, and it's not just in paper towels either. They can also be very useful for lifting heavy loads up long distances, as gravity can help you with lifting the actual load. More on levers now. Levers are all over in your house, and whereas you might not know it, a sink handle is a lever. You can't really grip the sink handle at the center and turn it on. It's easier to grip it at the edge and then push. This is because sink handles are a lever. The farther away from the fulcrum you grab a lever, the easier it is to turn it or move it. The toilet seat on a toilet is also a lever. If you try and lift the toilet seat up at the very near the fulcrum, it's a bit harder than it would be to just go to the edge and lift it like that. Another example of a pulley that you might not notice is a towel hanging in our towel rack. When you pull on one side of the towel, it transfers your downward force to upward force on the other half of the towel, and that way you can pull the towel up and down just by moving one side. Whereas hourglasses are great for keeping track of time, many of you are probably a lot more familiar with clocks. Clocks are special because they use gears to help keep time. Gears are just wheels, but they have teeth on them. The teeth on gears intermesh to help them move each other and transfer motion and work. Without gears, they would just grind together like two wheels would. A wheel is really just a lever, but an infinite number of levers wrapped around the same fulcrum. If you can think about it, there's an infinite number of levers spouting from the same central axis, and when you turn a wheel, all those levers are turning the same axis. But besides being levers, wheels also help reduce friction. Think about it. When you're pushing a heavy box across the table, friction, or the ground, friction makes it hard to move it. But if you got the box and set it on a pair of skateboards, which have wheels, it makes the work a lot easier to do because a lot of that friction is now gone. Without wheels, I think we'd be in a pretty bad situation in the world, seeing as how there are so many cars in the world.